Ben Thorne sat in the back of the archive room, hands trembling as he leaned into the flickering screen of an old terminal no one remembered installing. "If you're watching this," he said, voice low, "then I need you to understand something." I didn't believe it either, not until she disappeared. "You're not supposed to be here, not here in this part of the story. This file wasn't listed, not indexed, not found by any search engine. You clicked something you thought was just a story, but what you're hearing now is something different. It's not just a memory, it's a contamination. The kind of truth that stays under your skin. There's no music, no flashy intro. Just the sound of someone breathing heavily on the other end of something they shouldn't have touched." Ben looks directly into the camera now, eyes hollow like he's seen something that pulled his soul out through his ribs and never gave it back. "It started with one word," he whispers, "and it wasn't even in our language. June 18th, 2023. A blistering summer evening in Mill Creek, Pennsylvania. The kind of heat that makes air feel like a heavy presence. Ben had been working night shifts at the Langford Observatory, a small, decaying facility tucked behind overgrown hedges and empty faculty housing, when the incident happened. They'd been tracking some minor irregularities in electromagnetic readings, static pulses spiking around 2:14 a.m. each night like a ghost tapping from behind the glass. Harmless noise, they thought. Cosmic junk. Then came the girl. Her name was Clarissa Vale, not a scientist, not an employee. No one saw her walk in. One minute the hallway camera showed an empty corridor, and the next, she was just there, standing, in front of the sealed lab door like she had always belonged. Thin, pale, a hospital band still wrapped around her wrist with no visible text. Her eyes were wide and brimming with tears, but she didn't look sad. She looked awake, like the rest of us were still asleep. Ben approached, cautious but calm. "Are you lost?" he asked. She didn't answer, just raised her hand, placed over the electronic lock, and the door, security-grade, biometric only, opened. Inside the lab, the power dropped instantly. Not a flicker, a kill switch. Cameras, lights, monitors, dead. Except one screen. A diagnostic console no one knew had turned on in years blinked to life and displayed a single line of text. "They remember." Clarissa turned to Ben and leaned in so close he said he felt her breath on his skin. She whispered something then, a single word. He's never told anyone what it was. Not once. Not even in this recording. But he says the moment she said it, every shadow in the room changed direction. The security team found Ben 6 hours later, lying on the floor of the lab, alone. Clarissa was gone. No trace, no footsteps, no records of her entering the building. But the thing that made Ben break, what's never left him since, wasn't the disappearance. It was what the baby said the next day. Ben's sister had a newborn, barely 2 months old. He visited her after the incident, trying to convince himself he hadn't lost his mind. And as he stood over the crib, eyes still red, hands shaking, the baby turned to him and said it. Said the same word Clarissa whispered. Not babbled. Said clear as anything. His sister laughed it off, thought it was just the stress, but Ben knew. He knew that word didn't come from Earth. He felt it nest behind his ears like a splinter of language that didn't belong in a human mouth. That was when the phone calls started. From disconnected numbers, old voices on the line, familiar ones, dead ones. Last week, Ben vanished, left this final recording hidden on an encrypted subfolder titled Only. First, HFY, Do Not Access. And right before the tape cuts to black, Ben leans forward and mutters the last line with glassy eyes. Something is wearing us like a costume, and it knows I saw it. Then silence, until the screen flickers one last time. And Clarissa's voice speaks from your device. She says your name, then everything goes dark. The screen goes dark, and your heart pounds like it's trying to rip itself out of your chest. Clarissa's voice, soft but unmistakable, whispers your name. Slowly, deliberately, and then silence. Nothing but a cold void where the story should have continued. But then, a static crackle interrupts the blackness, subtle at first, almost imperceptible, like a secret someone whispered through a cracked radio. You lean in closer, fingers gripping your device tighter, because now the room feels smaller, the air thicker. You swear you hear breathing, not Ben's, not Clarissa's, something else, something wrong. That's when the doubts begin to creep in, slow and relentless, like frost spreading across a window pane on a cold morning. Was what you just saw real? Or just a fractured reflection of some deeper madness hiding beneath the surface of a mind that's been unraveling for years? Ben's story, those haunting images, the strange word that neither he nor Clarissa ever revealed. It all feels too coherent to be accidental. But there's something missing, something off. You check the timestamp on the file again. June 18th, 2023, right? But then the file metadata glitches, freezes for a second, then jumps back 2 months earlier. And the name on the file is not Ben Thorne. It's something else, something you don't recognize. A small flicker of fear snakes down your spine. You start hunting for more, any other files with similar oddities, but your search comes up empty. Every trace of Ben, Clarissa, even the Langford Observatory seems scrubbed clean, like a ghost erased from the archives. Then a low buzz fills your ears, like a lullaby sung out of tune, and your screen flickers again. This time, it's not Ben's voice, but a man's. Calm, measured, and disturbingly intimate. You're looking for answers, he says. But the truth is what they don't want you to remember. His voice curls around your mind like smoke, pulling at threads you didn't know were frayed. What if everything you think you saw was just the beginning of forgetting? Suddenly the line cuts, replaced by another video. Grainy, handheld footage of a woman standing outside a hospital. She's fragile, wrapped in a heavy coat despite the summer heat, staring directly into the camera with eyes that flicker between defiance and desperation. "They told me to forget," she says, voice cracking like thin ice breaking beneath her feet. But some memories, they refuse to die. Her name is Leah Granger. She claims to have been at Langford that night, but her story doesn't line up with Ben's. She says Clarissa never whispered a word, no strange language, no vanishing act. According to Leah, the girl was never there at all. Just a figment, born from a mind pushed too far. Your mind reels. Two people, two versions of the same night, and no way to know which is true, or if either one is. The hospital bracelet from the footage matches the one on Clarissa's wrist in Ben's video. But Leah insists the bracelet was a prop from a play she was in. Her story slips between truth and delusion like a shadow shifting in the dark, and you start to wonder if she's reliable at all, or just another piece in this broken puzzle. You try to shake it off, but your thoughts spiral faster. You replay Ben's last whisper in your head. Something is wearing us like a costume. What if it's not just a metaphor? What if there is something inside us? Something that shapes memories, twists perceptions, that burrows so deep it erases whole swaths of what we thought was real? Your phone buzzes. A message from an unknown number. No words, just a voice note. You hesitate, fingers trembling as you press play. The audio is warped, distorted, but beneath the static, you swear you hear a lullaby. The same one you felt. Earlier, soft, barely there, but familiar enough to unsettle you to your core. Days pass, but sleep refuses to come easily. When you close your eyes, the same word hovers on the edges of your dreams, spoken by a voice too young, too old, too many at once. You catch flashes, brief glimpses of a hospital corridor, a locked door sliding open, a baby's face illuminated by a dying phone screen. And then there's the memory you don't have. You realize you're missing hours, maybe days, but you can't tell how much. Gaps in your recollection where everything feels wiped clean, like someone reached into your mind and deleted the file. You find yourself staring at your phone's call log, calls you don't remember making, texts you don't remember sending, all from numbers that don't exist. One night, a new message appears, this time with a video attachment labeled simply, "Remember." You watch it, breath hitching as a figure emerges. Ben, or someone who looks like him. But his eyes are darker, colder. His smile doesn't reach the corners of his mouth. "Did you think I left by choice?" he asks, voice trembling with something like fear or rage. "They don't want you to remember me. They don't want you to remember what I found." The footage cuts abruptly. That's when he shows up. David Carlisle. An old friend of Ben's, or so the records say, but everything you find about David feels off. Interviews with him are scarce, contradictory. One moment he's a grieving colleague searching for answers. The next he's a conspiracy theorist ranting about mind control and government cover-ups. His calm demeanor barely masks the brittle edge beneath, and his eyes hold secrets he refuses to share. David contacts you, claiming he's the only one who can help unravel the truth behind what no one tells you. The real unsolved mystery buried beneath layers of lies and silence. But his help comes with strings you're not ready to face. His paranoia is contagious, seeping into your thoughts like a poison. Was he the one manipulating Ben? Or was he trying to save him from something worse? Every conversation with David blurs the line between ally and adversary. His words trigger memories you thought were lost, and others that feel implanted. When you confront him about the contradictions, he only smiles, cryptic and cold. Sometimes the truth is what they hid inside your own mind. You start to notice patterns in your surroundings, a shadow flickering just beyond your vision, a word repeated in places it shouldn't be, a face glimpsed in a crowd that disappears when you look again. Fear tightens its grip, but it's no longer just about Clarissa or Ben or Langford Observatory. It's about you, about what you're beginning to realize. Maybe the real terror isn't something out there, but the fragility of your own reality, the possibility that the mind can be rewritten, memories edited, identities stolen, and beneath it all, the question that no one has dared to ask before anymore. What if the most horrifying truth is not what is out there, but what has already taken root inside you? The line between victim and predator, sane and insane, past and present, everything starts to dissolve. And as the static returns, you realize the final message isn't just for Ben or Leah or David. It's for you. And the voice that calls your name again, clear, unwavering, is not Clarissa's anymore. It's yours. You're not sure if that's salvation or the point of no return. For a long time, the hours blurred into a slow crawl, each minute stretched thin with dread and uncertainty. But then came the night you stumbled onto what you thought was the answer, the key to everything. A digital, breadcrumb trail hidden inside a forgotten backup server, buried deep beneath Langford Observatory's public records, tucked away like a secret only meant for eyes desperate enough to seek it. The files were marked simply, Clarissa Value Origin. You clicked, and suddenly the world tilted, as if some long-buried corner of your mind had been dusted off and cracked open in one violent sweep. The video that played wasn't what you expected. It wasn't the grainy footage of a frightened girl slipping through a locked door, or a cryptic whisper in a dying lab. Instead, it was a confession, a recorded journal entry made by a woman who looked painfully familiar. Her eyes were sunken with exhaustion, her voice brittle but laced with resolve. She introduced herself as Eleanor Vale, Clarissa's mother, and what she revealed felt like a weight lifting from your chest. She spoke of a terrible accident from years ago, an incident at a hospital not far from Mill Creek, Pennsylvania. A fire, a lost child, a family shattered by grief and lies. According to Eleanor, Clarissa wasn't just missing. She'd been taken, hidden away in plain sight by forces so secretive they erased every trace of her existence. Eleanor begged for the truth to come out, to end the nightmare her family had lived through in silence. The video ended with Eleanor's quiet plea, "Find her. Find my daughter." In that moment, everything seemed to align. The missing hospital bracelets, the whispers, the erased files. Suddenly, the shadows didn't feel so impenetrable. You reached out to David Carlyle with trembling hands, sending him the footage. His reply came almost instantly, a mixture of disbelief and cautious hope. He promised to dig deeper, to use every connection he had to trace Eleanor Vale, to find Clarissa and finally bring an end to the terror. For days, a fragile calm settled over your mind. The relentless pressure that had gripped your thoughts began to loosen as news trickled in. Eleanor had been located, alive but wary, living quietly under a new identity in the outskirts of Chicago. David claimed she was ready to talk, ready to expose what really happened that night, to reveal the people who had buried the truth, and maybe, just maybe, to explain the strange word that haunted your dreams. You felt a flicker of hope. The nightmare wasn't endless after all. You were going to uncover the hidden truth. You weren't crazy, they lied to you. But then, it all came crashing down. The night you were supposed to receive the first interview from Eleanor, your phone buzzed with a frantic call from David. His voice was sharp, strained, far from the calm investigator you'd known. "It's worse than we thought," he said, barely able to breathe. "Eleanor, she's gone, disappeared overnight. The house was empty, not a sign of forced entry, nothing stolen, just gone." The hope twisted into panic, but that wasn't the worst part. As you sat there, the memory glitch hit you like a freight train. A face, blurry but unmistakable, flashed behind your eyes, your own. Not your reflection, but a younger version of you, standing in a hospital hallway drenched in fluorescent light, clutching a small, lifeless hand. You shook your head violently, trying to dislodge the image, but it kept coming back with a terrible familiarity. The smell of antiseptic, the dull echo of hurried footsteps, the sound of a nurse whispering a name you couldn't quite remember. You dug through every scrap of your memory, but the more you tried to hold on, the more it slipped away, like water, through your fingers. The unease settled deep into your bones. You realized then that this wasn't just Eleanor's nightmare bleeding into yours. It was your nightmare, too. Something had been watching you all along, threading itself through your past and present with invisible fingers. You found yourself retracing steps, scrolling through old photos, searching for clues in places you thought were long forgotten. And there it was, a faded snapshot tucked inside a dusty family album. A baby swaddled tightly in a hospital blanket, eyes wide and unblinking. Behind the baby, standing in the shadows, a figure that looked like a man. But his face was obscured, blurred beyond recognition. The more you stared, the more you felt the weight of that gaze, cold and penetrating. It wasn't just an old photograph. It was a record of something darker, something that had been there since the beginning, silent and waiting. David's voice crackled over the line again, darker this time. "We've been looking at this all wrong," he confessed. "This isn't just about Clarissa. It's about all of us, about the memories they stole and the ones they planted. What you're seeing, what you think you know. It's a carefully constructed illusion." And then, the files started to disappear, one by one. Encrypted videos, audio logs, even entire folders vanished from your device as if they'd never existed. The name Eleanor Vale was wiped from every database. Even David's contact info became unreachable overnight. You sat back, heart pounding, as the final piece slotted into place, or rather, unraveled the entire puzzle. The stranger, the force that had been watching, wasn't a ghost or a government conspiracy. It was something more personal, more insidious. A darkness that lived inside the fractures of your own mind, feeding on forgotten memories and half-truths. It was a presence that thrived in the gaps where reality frayed, where memory, glitch, and nightmare intertwined. You replay the story from the beginning again, but this time with fresh eyes. Every whisper, every vanished person, every chilling detail now casts a new shadow, an echo of something buried beneath the surface of your own history. The mystery isn't just uncovered, it's rewritten. And as the screen fades to black, a single question lingers. If the truth you thought you found was a lie, then what was really watching you all along? And how long before it calls your name again? there is something you need to understand, something that no one has ever dared say out loud. You are not alone in this, not by a long shot. While you've been wrestling with the fraying edges of your own reality, with the echoes of a past that keeps slipping through your fingers, there are others. Others who have been silently watching, waiting, tethered to the same unseen thread that binds your fractured memories to the mystery you thought was yours alone. You've felt it, haven't you? That prickling sensation in the back of your mind when you think you're alone but you're not. That whisper just out of earshot. The flicker of a shadow in the corner of your vision. The symbol you swear you see in places it shouldn't be. These others, call them the watchers or the rememberers, are scattered like ghosts across this vast invisible web. They've been sending messages, cryptic and broken, stitched together like pieces of a shattered puzzle only the most desperate can decode. It started with the dreams, shared dreams, haunting and vivid, playing out in the same endless loop of cold hospital corridors and locked doors sliding open to darkness. You find yourself there sometimes, but you're not alone in that dreamscape. Faces flicker, unknown and familiar. People who wake with the same hollow questions and the same gnawing fear of what's real and what's a lie. Then there are the symbols, subliminal, woven into the background of news footage, hidden in graffiti, on city walls, in advertisements on the radio waves you barely notice. A triangle pierced by a single line. An eye that never blinks. The same word repeated in languages you don't understand but feel compelled to learn. You start to see them everywhere, each citing a thread pulling you deeper into the story you thought was just yours. And what if I told you that there is someone watching this all unfold? Someone who's been there from the very beginning, observing without interfering, recording without judgment. They call themselves the archivist. No one knows their real name or face, just a presence, a third perspective in this tangled web of memories and lost truths. The archivist is the only one who seems to see the bigger picture, the only one who dares to say the words you're too scared to admit. You were right all along. Found footage from 20 years ago surfaces, digital ghosts lost in government, archives that were never meant to see daylight. The footage is grainy, warped by time and deliberate erasure, but the message is clear. It shows a series of experiments, people tethered to machines that scrape and rewrite memories, minds fracturing. Under pressure, identities unraveling in real time. Names are crossed out, replaced, erased like whispers lost in a hurricane of forgotten truths. This is what the government never released, what they buried beneath layers of lies and silence. And now, somehow, you're caught in the middle. You're beginning to realize that identity is no longer fixed. It's fluid, fragile, a construct that can be manipulated and reshaped like clay in unseen hands. Your memories might not be yours at all. You might be a patchwork of borrowed thoughts, edited emotions, a synthetic self pieced together by forces beyond comprehension. The question is no longer who you are, but who you were made to be, and, more terrifyingly, who still controls the narrative. As the archivist's messages trickle into your inbox, fragments of truth wrapped in riddles and warnings, you start to question everything you thought you knew. The past, the present, the very fabric of your mind begins to unravel faster than you can grasp. You begin to suspect that the conspiracy isn't just about missing people or erased memories. It's about control itself. Control over what you remember, who you trust, and ultimately what you become. The line between observer and participant blurs until you can no longer tell if you are the one being watched, or if you have always been watching. The energy pulses. Through you, a current of dread and possibility, and you know the story isn't finished. It's only just beginning, and the next move belongs to you. Because now, more than ever, the question isn't just about uncovering what was hidden. It's about deciding if you'll let them rewrite your story once again, or if you'll fight to reclaim the truth that has always been yours. The screen glitches again. The triangle symbol pulses, sharp and unblinking, and the message flickers. Welcome. We've been waiting. The moment arrived with the weight of 1,000 unsaid words pressing down on your chest, a suffocating realization settling like cold ash over everything you thought was real. It wasn't about uncovering who vanished or who watched in the shadows, or even what the symbols meant. No, the real question, one that clawed at the edges of your soul, was why. Why this invisible force bent time and memory, twisted identity, into a fragile, malleable shape, and played puppeteer with the lives of so many, including your own. You had chased ghosts, deciphered fragments, and tangled with a shadowy past, but now the truth sat in front of you, like a mirror cracked and bleeding, reflecting something far more human, far more terrifying. Your own vulnerability, your own fracture. It was David's voice that shattered the silence, not through a text or a call, but in person, a ghost of a man who looked worn thin by the very mystery he helped uncover. His eyes, usually sharp with determination, were clouded with something else, pain, regret, and a quiet despair that bled into your bones. "I never wanted you to see this," he confessed, voice low and raw, as if peeling away his own skin. "What we're dealing with, and it's not just about control or secrets. It's about fear. Fear of being forgotten, of losing what makes us, us." The words hung in the air, raw and heavy. You realized then that the conspiracy was a mirror of something deeply human, our desperate need to hold on to memory, identity, connection, even when the world fractures around us. Every erased file, every vanished person, every cryptic symbol was an echo of that primal terror, the fear of becoming nothing, of being erased not just from records, but from existence itself. In the dim glow of the room, the lines between hunter and hunted, victim and perpetrator blurred. You saw your reflection in the cracked screen, fractured and flickering like the memories you clung to. This truth, this terrible, beautiful, raw truth, was not a weapon to wield, but a mirror to hold. And what you saw in that mirror was both salvation and destruction. "You have a choice," David said quietly, his voice trembling. "You can let this truth consume you, shatter everything you thought you knew, and become lost in the darkness, or you can choose to accept it, to live, with the fracture and the pain, and maybe, just maybe, find something real on the other side." Your heart hammered against your ribs like a frantic drumbeat, as the weight of his words settled deep into your bones. The fear that had chased you like a shadow was no longer outside. It was inside, tangled in your very being. You could feel it unraveling the seams of your identity, threatening to dissolve the fragile self you had fought so hard to protect. And yet beneath that fear, a flicker of something else stirred, a fragile, trembling hope. That maybe, within the broken pieces of memory and lost truth, there was a seed of understanding, a chance to reclaim not just what was taken, but who you truly were beneath the layers of manipulation and forgotten years. In that moment of unbearable clarity, you let go. Let the weight fall away, not as defeat, but as surrender to the truth that had been waiting all along, waiting not to destroy, but to awaken. The nightmare was not a cage, but a call. The mystery was not an ending, but a beginning. As the screen fades to black, your breath slows, your mind quiets, and the echoes of the past settle into a stillness that feels both terrifying and sacred. You are not the person you were when this journey began. You are something else now, fractured, fragile, but fiercely alive. And in that silence, a final whisper lingers, a poetic, haunting line that settles deep into the heart of everything you've seen and felt. In the shattered pieces of who we were lie the fragile truths of who we might yet become. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for stories you were never meant to hear. Until next time, remember, some truths don't want to be found.